On this week's KSP News Show, certification testing starts on the console versions of KSP, meaning that they really aren't too far away. And why no episodes for such a long time? I go over the future of the show. All that and more on this week's KSP News Show. Reporting live from the Kerbal Space Center, it's your host, Jin Lee Kerman. Good morning, evening and afternoon, my fellow Kerbonauts. My name is Jin Lee Kerman. Welcome back after a very long time to the KSP News Show. It has been legitimately almost a month since our last show because there really hasn't been all that much news. I'm going to be talking at the end with regards to the future of the show. Don't worry, I'm not cancelling it or anything. I just want to talk a little bit about it, but I'll talk about it at the end of this video because of course I want to bring you some awesome KSP news stories, or rather some of the smaller stuff that's been going on while we've sort of been on hiatus. So let's get straight into that. So yes, while the dev notes have still been going on and all that sort of good jazz, unfortunately there hasn't been all that much news to actually report on that hasn't been like repeated in the dev notes every single week. There has been a few tidbits here and there, but they've really been negligible and not really worth putting into a show. But finally, in this week's dev notes, which was last Tuesday, we finally got a piece of very interesting information with regards to the console versions of KSP and perhaps some as yet unrevealed things coming in future updates. In the very last paragraph of this week's dev notes, it says, tangible progress is also being made on the console releases of KSP. The certification process is about to start, which means Joe, aka Dr. Turkey, is finally on the home stretch in this area. That's good, because there's lots of other things to focus on. An increasing amount of meetings we can't talk about yet, finishing planning of the final stages of the 1.1 update, the first stages of planning for the 1.2 update, invoicing media for upcoming events such as the DICE Awards and SXSW Gaming. At this point, Joe's story was ruthlessly cut short and censored by Casper. Now, first things first, I think it's brilliant that the console versions of KSP are finally getting close to completion now. In the last episode of the KSP News Show, I did talk quite a lot about what certification testing is, but basically, I'll go over it again really quickly. It is basically squad handing off the sort of nearly finished build to Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo and what have you to make sure that the thing is safe, that it won't actually like brick your console when you actually use it, and so it will be good for sale once it actually is able to be put on sale once it's finished. It may not be a fully complete game yet, but if it passes certification testing, we can be pretty confident in that it's going to be released in the very near future. That probably won't be for at least another 2 weeks until we hear about this though. The real interesting part of this sort of paragraph for me comes in the fact that we almost got some leaked information. This is kind of a joke, I guess, in the dev notes, teasing us, I guess, as the supporters of KSP, the fans of KSP. But by doing this, they're letting us know that there is some awesome content to come in the very near future in the form of obviously the 1.1 update, the 1.2 update, various real-life events that KSP will be attending, and even more in the future. It's just a nice little commitment to show that there is going to be actual features coming in rather than talking about Unity 5 and the UI interface in the dev notes like they have been in the past couple of weeks. Of course, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with talking about the UI upgrade in Unity 5 and what have you, because they are core parts of the game which are ultimately going to benefit us in a massive way once 1.1 does actually release in terms of optimization, graphical fidelity, all that sort of stuff. But when you're talking about mostly coding jargon that very few people, including myself, have difficulty understanding, it does kind of get a little bit boring sometimes, and so that's also one of the reasons there has been a lack of KSP news, because there's been a lack of sort of coherent information. But this is a very nice promise, and this is a nice sort of gesture from Squad to show that there is actually meaty content coming very soon. If I were to go out on a limb, I'd say that multiplayer would probably be included in one of these future updates in the not too distant future. I could be completely wrong on that, and it's not putting any pressure on anyone to do that. It's just that if I were to go out and predict what would be coming next in Kerbal Space Program, that would be my number one guess for either 1.2 or 1.3 or what have you. But I want to get your guys' take on this. What do you think will be in the next 2 or 3 Kerbal Space Program updates. I want to know in the comments down below. Let me know. I do read all of the comments, so do let me know and what you think may be coming in these future updates. Go completely crazy. These can be completely abstract as much as possible, so long as it can be sort of doable within Unity 5, 5.1, whatever. Just go crazy. Just post it down there. I want to just get some really wacky ideas and see what could actually be added into KSP if you had control of development. So let me know in the comments down below. This isn't the only change that's been talked about in the most recent dev notes. They're also talking more about the contract system in the game, how it's going to be more procedural now. On top of this, Squad are also streamlining it to make sure that some of the contracts are a bit more sort of doable. Like, it won't ask you to go to Juno when you've only got like second tier of parts and stuff like that. That's been less of a problem since 1.05 has been released, but it has still happened occasionally, so they are sort of streamlining it in this sort of sense. If you want to read more on that, I will be leaving a link to the dev blog in the description down below. If you scroll down to the dev notes, you should be able to read them out in full. But that's pretty much it for the actual news today, guys, and that's sort of a segue, I guess, into this next sort of bit of the show, where I just sort of want to have a bit of an explanation as to why there hasn't been a show for so long. So obviously, as I've said multiple times in this episode, there hasn't been all that much news since sort of the new year with regards to 1.1 KSP consoles. There has been a few bits here and there, but honestly, they haven't been worth making an entire show out of. There are probably a few of you out there which probably think that I could have made a show anyway and sort of dragged out these small piece of information out perhaps more than I should have. But if I'm honest, I really don't like doing that. I see a lot of YouTubers in other games communities that report on news and stuff like that. They have really misleading titles and thumbnails, and they make you think, oh yeah, this is going to be the best news story ever, it's going to completely change the game, brr. But at the end of the day, it's literally just a rumor, or it's literally just something, some tiny piece of information that they've blown massively out of proportion. I have to admit, I'm not an innocent party in this. In the KSP news show in the past, I perhaps may have blown information up perhaps more than I should have. But if I'm honest, I really don't enjoy doing that, because it makes me feel like I'm putting pressure on Squad through using the publicity of this show to potentially blow a piece of information out of proportion, which may in turn make them feel they want to make the game one way, when in actual fact they should probably make it the other way. That probably didn't make any sense whatsoever, but that's just my take on it, if you get what I mean. In case that made absolutely no sense, I'll put it this way. The reason I make this show is to bring you guys the news and to have discussions about the development of Kerbal Space Program, what's going well, what could perhaps be improved and stuff like that, and getting opinions down in the comments down below in the hope that Squad may see one of these videos and perhaps maybe take some of the feedback on board. What I don't want to have this show doing is become sort of a clickbaity, horrible sort of thing, and I know it's not at the moment. It's just I don't want it to become in danger of doing that sort of thing, if you get what I mean. So that's why I don't report on the smaller stories until I have enough to sort of gather together into a single show, if you get what I mean, because I don't want to sort of just milk this for money or anything, because at the end of the day, we all love KSP, and I'm just another member of the community voicing their opinions in it. And so I hope you guys can understand that, and that's why there is a gap in between episodes sometimes, especially during quieter periods of development such as this. Wow, that was a pretty heavy note to end the episode on, actually. I'm sorry about that, guys. You are still awesome, and I love you all for supporting this show and everything. I would not be where I am today without you, and I just want to, after all of that heavy stuff, I just want to say a massive just thank you to all of you, really, because like I say, I get to have a voice in this community now through this show, and it's through you guys' love of KSP and my love of KSP that we get to do this, and so for that I am just simply eternally grateful, really. But aside from that, I'm going to end it off for this week's episode. Remember to like and subscribe for more if you have enjoyed this. My name is Jinley Kerman, and as always, stay classy.